President Trump is escalating his 2015 level of beef with the press. He's taking over the seating chart in the White House press briefing room per Axios. The move is part of a broader crackdown on access to the president and White House staff. There has been a move toward promoting Trump-friendly press. Here's Caroline Levitt.
As for switching up seating in the briefing room, it's something we are seriously considering. And we tried to broker a meeting with the White House Correspondents Association board today to discuss that matter. But unfortunately, their president sent out a fundamentally unserious email to the rest of their membership, making it clear that this is a group that doesn't care about press freedom, transparency, and access for all media voices, but just cares about having their monetized monopoly over the briefing room. And I would remind them that the briefing room is part of the people's house. It belongs to the American people. It does not belong to elitist journalists here in Washington, D.C.
The current White House press corps might be rattled, but it's not new. Former White House press secretary under George W. Bush, Ari Fleischer, sought to jog some memories, posting, quote, "The decision re who gets to sit in taxpayer-provided seats in a government building should not be made by journalists. It should be made by the press secretary, as was standard until 2006. CNN's media journalist Brian Stelter added on X, "The press secretary confirmed yesterday's reports and said we're seriously considering taking charge of the briefing room seating chart, which would Bigfoot the White House Correspondents Association." The White House Correspondents Association then issued a statement Monday saying in part, quote, "The most obvious end result of this reported plan is the punishment, not elevation of journalists. It's the same at the Pentagon, where the administration removed long-standing outlets whose coverage they disagreed with for other outlets that did not regularly cover the building." So here's the thing. Look, I don't love the idea of the White House rearranging the seating chart just so that friendlier perspectives are the only ones that get to speak up. I think that's obviously bad, and if Democratic administrations had done that, conservatives would be rightfully up in arms about it. That said, it is true that the White House Correspondents Association is a cartel-like organization that prioritizes the question-asking rights of elite media folks who are disproportionately liberal and progressive. So it was tipped the other way by just letting them do it. And I think I'm forced to agree with Ari Fleischer that it would be weird for the press secretary to not be the one who gets to be in control of that. Now, I think we should hear from a variety of voices, so whatever facilitates that the best. I don't think we were getting a good variety under just the White House Correspondents Association running it, and independent content creators, alternative media personalities, including many of the people whose voices we feature on this show and we've interviewed, have been happy about the changes to the rules because now they get to ask questions in the briefing room. So that's good, but yes, it should not just be only friendly people asking questions.
Well, I've been in the briefing room before, and you can ask questions, and it's often the person who's at the podium who's going to call on you.
Yeah.
So that's number one. So you do have to be a little bit vocal, right? And make sure that
But how close you sit matter, it's
sure, how close you sit matters, but I think
it's kind of a juvenile thing.
We often
it's true.
See, well, right. But what we often see is that legacy media has the ability to have the resources, the cameraman who zooms in on their reporter, who then we see that played over and over again. And so oftentimes that's what you're going to see, because a lot of people are not always watching independent media, but they are watching sometimes legacy media, and that's what they see. So it looks and appears that only the legacy media got to ask questions, but actually that's just what was played on their air because it was their reporter. So I'm just giving another perspective to it. The White House Correspondents Association, an independent media can, and I've seen it. I've seen folks from all over the world who have come in, especially during election time and seasons where there's a lot of political upheaval or conversation. I've seen people that I didn't recognize who were coming into the briefing room.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think that's another perspective, is that you can ask questions. It's just who's capturing your questions and how often is it played and on what media channel is it played. That's my point.
What the Trump campaign understood much better than, this was the theme of my monologue today, what they understood much better than the Kamala or Biden campaigns, what is the importance of independent media, that not everyone is just watching TV and getting their news from cable cable news from legacy media or getting their news from the newspapers. An increasing large number of Americans, particularly younger Americans, are listening to 3-hour podcasts or getting their news on TikTok or getting their news on other social media platforms or getting some variety therein. Now, of course, the social media platforms include clips from the legacy media too.
Yes.
So it's this whole stew with a lot of ingredients in it that we're all eating for dinner. And that is fine and that is good. And I think the collapse of some of the gatekeeping that was done when it was just a handful of media organizations is a good thing, but they also have their role to play. And there should be tough questioning from all sides, tough questioning of the people in power, whether that be Republicans or Democrats.
Well, that's where I disagree. I think that there wasn't gatekeeping. You could apply to come into the briefing room, and there's a process in doing so, and there's security clearances because it is the White House. So I don't think there was gatekeeping. I just think what was captured and played, as you mentioned, over and over again on social was something from legacy media, and they're zeroing in on the reporter's face, and they have extra camera crews potentially there. They have the ability to really get this out there. Independent media could still apply. I think what we're seeing here is control and pressure. Like you said at the very top, if you're disagreeing with the administration, they're going to find a way, and this is one of the ways that they're doing it. We saw it with the way they treated the pool and the AP and Mexico and the different names. And so we see this.
Yeah, I didn't agree with them on that. I thought that was a little silly.
I just think that there's another perspective to it, and there's a process, and this is the White House. You are not just walking in there without a security clearance. This is
nobody's saying they should be walking in without a security clearance.
But there's a process, is my point, and sometimes it comes across as we should just let everybody. Well, we should, but there also has to be some checks and balances because this is the White House, and there should be a respect and a process and a system for getting into the briefing room. But I agree, independent media should be there, and there's a process.
There has to be a process because it's a physical space that has a finite amount of room in it. So there has to be some decision for who's going to be in the room, obviously. The question becomes, do you trust the White House Correspondents Association
How about
to
you
make
trust
those
the person
determinations?
at the podium to pick on people?
Well, that's the system we're going with.
Well, that's the key, I think. You've got to call on people who you don't recognize.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
If I'm in there, I'm going to be waving my hand.
I know you will.
Really aggressively.
I know.
So
You're going to wear that green tie, make sure everyone notices.
No, I'm usually not there because they often do this at the same time we're filming the show. So I haven't been there in quite a few years.
We're going to get you in there, Robby.
Maybe we'll get me in there. Coming up, we will interview the co-authors of the bombshell new book, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. You will not want to miss that conversation.